Hello, everyone at OB. So I'm here with uh, uh, Mr. Muncie, and I just uh, I
This
just
is take
did
17.
did like 5 minutes of recording where all you could see was uh, my face, and I was explaining stuff, and it didn't make a lot of sense. So uh, for those who don't know, Mr. Muncie is going to be my student in this video, and it's kind of like our roles have changed. For those who don't know, when I first got to the O'Brien in 2007, he was my mentor teacher, and I carefully watched him every one of his classes for the entire year and just took really careful notes on everything that he did. And then I started to take over a couple of the classes, and I'd just try and imitate exactly what he had done in the earlier periods. It was an incredible relationship, and he's uh, still a great friend. So thanks, Jim, for
Right
doing
back at
this.
you, buddy. The student becomes the teacher.
And let me hit share on Zoom. Uh, and I'll share my desktop. And, oh, I see. Let me do this one more time. We'll get this better. I've got a second monitor, and it makes it a little confusing, honestly, but I think it's going to be worth it if I can figure it out. Here we go. Well, there we go. This is just Jim. He's not huge version up above. So later I'll talk about my setup here. I've got this is something that I've done to try and make things workable. We were talking about how difficult it is to manage all the tabs, everything that's going on all at the same time. So I've got my laptop set up on a laptop stand here, so the camera is pointing right at my head, and it's like ergonomically reasonable. And up above it, directly above my screen, I've got an external monitor that I got off Amazon for $100. And that's where I keep all the Zoom stuff. So I don't have to like try and go through my tabs to find where Zoom is. And then it's full screen, so I can't get to it. So I have to hit the back to meeting, and like it's all, and I'm always like feeling like I'm scrambling. I'm just keeping Zoom always at the top monitor. And it's kind of imitating that experience of me like turning my head from the board, and there's the whole class, and all I have to do is turn my head and I can see the class. Now all I have to do is look up, and there's the class. uh, so what I was going to do is quickly go through this email that I have sent you, the same email that you're reading right, or that you just read. And in the email, you can see the first thing I'm talking about is Clever. And I was pretty dubious about Clever at first. I didn't really feel like it was a particularly useful tool. It's just, why not just use bookmarks in my browser? But since I've decided that, especially for the student view, if I go to the student view, I made up classes here for each of my classes. It's a little tricky to figure out how to make these classes. You just do add, and then you can choose page. And once you make the class, you can assign students to it. And so I've got two sections assigned to Algebra 2 and two sections assigned to Honors Algebra 2. And if I go into Algebra 2, then I've got all of the resources that I've introduced to the students and that I expect students to use with some frequency during the class. And so I've got them all just right here. So there's one place that they can go, and I can actually even launch these apps for students. I haven't found that to be particularly useful, but just as an organization place, if a student's asking me how to get to something or where something is, I just say, did you go to Clever? Because it's right there. So that's useful. Okay, next thing, Aspen and Google Classroom. I just kind of belly aching a bit here. I'm having a hard time figuring out where do I put my grades? Are my grades in Aspen or are they in Google Classroom? And that's something that's always been a little confusing. I've decided that I'm just really kind of reiterating to students, I might use Google Classroom to calculate your grades, but the place to see your grades 100% of the time is Aspen. And that's where, if you're interested in your grade, where you should go. And I'm not putting my rubric into Google Classroom at all. I don't know. What are you doing, Jim? Are you doing the same?
I'm doing the same. In fact, we're supposed to do that. Aspen is still supposed to be the hub of the grading system. So what I'm going to be doing is, like, when the kids finish, say, a week of assignments, at the end of that week, I'll go into Aspen. But I don't want to have to copy every single homework grade from one platform to another. So instead, I just have one column, say for homework, for example, that says homework average from September 21st until present. And once a week, I just update that column in Aspen. In the description of that assignment, it does say to see individual assignments, visit Google Classroom.
That makes a lot of sense. It is really, in my opinion, frustrating that Aspen doesn't have the ability to just simply paste in a row of grades. It would save an immense amount of time, and it would result in much more timely grade reporting for students and parents. I'm doing the exact same thing, both for Khan Academy and for grades in Google Classroom.
One other thing is, last spring, there's a Chrome extension called Grade Transferer.
Ooh.
And the purpose of it is you're supposed to be able to quickly copy a column of grades from Google Classroom specifically into Aspen.
Oh.
I tried to use it last spring and it wasn't working. I did a little help chat with them and they realized the way BPS has Aspen set up, it was causing an issue, but they said they were going to fix it shortly. I haven't tried it yet this fall, but that might be worth looking into.
Oh, this is awesome. The roles switch back again. So what was it called?
The teacher has been taught. Grade Transferer. Transfer with an ER in the end.
This is frustrating. There's a big delay when I'm writing. I don't know what is causing that. I'm using the Loom application to do this recording. I'll talk about how to really briefly later. Effortlessly. This one right here.
Yep. The reviews on it were pretty good too.
Yeah, it looks like it. Probably people like us who are extremely frustrated with having to type hundreds of numbers without making a mistake, dozens of times a week or, at least a month. I'm going to add the extension, read data you copy and paste, read and change all your data on the websites you visit. That's a lot of permissions that I'm giving, but I think it makes sense. I guess one of the two of us will report back on how it works at some point. Okay, so that's Aspen and Google Classroom. In terms of how I'm actually using Aspen and Google Classroom, other than that, nothing really interesting. I post assignments that aren't like Khan Academy, basically, go into Google Classroom, so students know they only have two places they have to check. Let's see. Exciting features coming to you soon. Okay. Click here for a two-minute overview and video. That's what I'll do right after we're done with this video. Okay, so here's Google Classroom. You can see my classes set up. Oh, something I did that I do think is useful, and it's not too bad to do. I just in Google Drive, I made a picture and I put my my link to my Zoom right there in my picture, and then I went in here and I uploaded photo to set it as the background. So students who are trying to get into my Zoom sessions can go there. I have the same Zoom sessions for the class for actually it's the only Zoom session I'm using. I decided it's just going to be like my classroom, and that's just my classroom Zoom, j.mp/Mr. Henry Zoom. I used a tool called bit.ly, bit.ly, to make that or j.mp is the same as bit.ly. It just goes to the same place. I made that shortcut. You have to paste in the full long URL, and then it lets you create your own version of a short URL. And nobody had made Mr. Henry Zoom before, so I got that one.
Shocking.
Okay, next thing is Google Drive. I think I got all these in order. Oh yeah, this, I'm sure many of you use Google Drive, but I have a shared Google Drive folder, and what I've done for the folder is for the sharing settings is I've shared with instead of having to type each student's name, which big hassle. I don't want to have to do that, and there's a bunch of different places where I want students to be in. I have oh well, it doesn't show up here. I guess I'll do it right now. OB dash alg2 dash period 1. I made this what's called a Google group, and I am able to use that, and just with that, like those one things, ob-alg2 period 1, it's like basically a folder of all of my students in period 1, and alg2 period 3 is all my students in period 3. So I've gone into Google Groups. You go to groups.google.com and you create that, and then you can use that in all of the kind of Google products. You can use those shortcut links. So now that I do this, they have access to this folder, just the students. And I also gave access to all the OB staff, so you can all check this out too. And in here, I've got like all my curriculum. I decided this is the easiest way to organize kind of all my resources is in Google Drive. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's anything interesting there. Feel free to ask me if you have questions about how I'm using Google Drive. I have done a lot of work with it, and there's a lot of tricks that can make it work well. The next thing was Google Sites. I'm using Google Sites as a tool to be able to kind of emulate the classroom space. So my students are right now creating, whoa, I just accidentally hit the trash can icon on my recording. Didn't delete anything, gave me a warning, but that's a little scary. So in Google Sites, the students will be able to click here, and actually I'm going to go to the editing version, and they can create their own web pages. And on their web pages, I'm expecting each student to there we go. I'm expecting each student to, I've got some students here, to post a why are you here that connects them to the content. What are their long-term goals and why they're here? And so they have access to being able to edit this website. And I'm also going to post videos here, videos for the students. So one of the nice features of that is once I publish the video, I'm also publishing it with the transcript, and that enables students who are using the website to be able to click the little search bar here and to search. And if I've got 40 different videos in January, and the student is like remembering that 17th video, or maybe it was the 18th, or which one was, I can't remember exactly. There was something that he said that I want to remember before this test. If they can remember a phrase in the video, they type it in and it'll pull up the transcript with that phrase right there. So that was a feature that I spent a lot of time kind of working out how to do. And I think it's working now.
So if you were like talking trash about Mr. Tapia, they could just search the word Tapia and it would find that video?
Exactly. You got it. There'd be a lot of hits basically every video, but next thing on here after Google Sites is is Nearpod. So the primary way, like when students come into class, I always have, historically, students come into the physical classroom, I always have the topic and objectives, the homework assignments, the kind of any announcements that are critical. I have those up on the wall immediately when students come in. So I'm using Nearpod to emulate that experience. Students come into the Zoom session, they have a key to the Nearpod session right available immediately, and so they go over to Nearpod and they see. And for those of you who haven't had a chance to experiment with Nearpod, the reason I picked it is the math workflow addressing that kind of scenario one situation that I describe in the email, where I'm presenting a problem on the board. I present a math problem on the board. Then what I want is for students to work on the math problem, and while they're working, for me to kind of circulate around the room and look at and find out where are students at, what's going on for the student right there, help out students who need help one-on-one when I can. And then, come back and either present a student solution on the board, have a student present the solution on the board, or me present the solution on the board. So kind of in the practice mode, that kind of workflow. And Nearpod, I think, does a really good job, not great, but a really good job with that workflow, with the draw it kind of widget within Nearpod. I'm not going to demo that, but watch one of the Nearpod demos, or just try it out. You can access, if you send me an email, I'll send you a link so you can access the student view and teacher view of one of my Nearpod slides. The One of the issues that I've run into is when I started making videos and putting them into Nearpod, it copies the kind of, when I started making slideshow presentations and putting them into Nearpod, the app, it makes a copy of it. So it's in both Nearpod and in Google Drive, and it gets confusing. So the way I dealt with that is I made folders, and it actually took me a while to figure out how to even make folders in Nearpod. If you're in Nearpod at the home screen, you go up here and you hit New up here by Quick Launch, and down there is Folder. It's also possible within a given session to hit this and go Add to Folder, to hit the three dots and go to Add to Folder. But I got these three, and what I'm gonna have in here to organize is I'll have a folder that's just the name of the unit, and so I'll have a new unit. So I don't have a ton of things, but I also don't spend all my time worrying about organization. So everything that I do until I start quadratics is going in the Virtual Tools and Algebra Review folder, and I've got 4 presentations in there.
Wow. One thing about the folders that I figured out the other day, it's just one step beyond what you just said, but if you click on that advisory, what is it? The 3 dots. I'm sorry, go down to the presentation itself.
Yep.
If you click on those 3 dots, I was looking for, add to folders, but wait, I don't have any folder. But actually, if you do just click on add to folder, that's where you have another, and it's what you just said, but you should show people. There's an option right there. Yeah. And you
create new folder. Cool. I hadn't seen that yet. Thanks.
Yeah.
It's like we've got so many of these free apps that we're making use of in really professional settings, and they're new apps, and they're great in a lot of ways, but the learning curve is pretty steep. I feel really overwhelmed. Thanks for being like an audience to this, as I'm really using you as an audience to start to learn and get more comfortable with talking about these apps. Okay, my Zoom bar is in the way of the things that I want to click. That's an annoyance. I can put it up here, though. I don't know why I didn't do that before. The next thing I was talking about, I think, is a whiteboard.fi. Uh, so what about the other situation? Now, in a more group work centered situation, I present or a student presents or the situation presents a problem scenario. It doesn't have to be like a specific math problem with a specific solution. It can just be a scenario where I want the students to kind of do some deep thinking on it in groups, but independently in groups. It's like split the room into groups. Here, work on this problem for a minute. When you're done, come together with the class and talk about it. So I'm using whiteboard.fi to emulate that experience. And the way I'm doing it, I think I've tested it out. I'm not sure that it's the best way, but I think it's interesting. And a student actually suggested to me, and I think it's pretty clever. It when students get in groups, they pick a leader. So I break students into groups of four. Each group picks a leader, and so imagine Jim and I are in a group, and we're arguing over who's going to be the leader, and we do rock paper scissors. Let's see if this works here. Rock paper scissors. So how does it do? I always forget the sound. Is it rock paper scissors shoot? Is that it? Yeah. Rock paper scissors shoot. Oh, and he got me. So I'm the leader. uh, so what I would do as the leader of the students within that little session, I'd go into whiteboard.fi and I'd make a new class, like I'm the teacher, right? And then I go into my breakout session in Zoom, and I share with the three other students in there the code. So I hit new class, and I recommend for the workflow that I was describing. Uh, I don't know why that M is there. Teacher. Uh, uh, I recommend enabling slow mode. What that does, it makes the site work a little bit better with students if they're having network problems. But even more than that, it doesn't automatically update the kind of teacher view with the student work. And it doesn't take the teacher view and automatically propagate that to the students. You have to actually hit the save button to do it. So it's much more, remember the scenario that I'm emulating, students working in groups where they're working independently first, right? When you're working independently, nobody else is looking right at your paper. You want to have a minute to think about it, to write some things down and erase them. And so that's what we're emulating here. And I think that enable slow mode does a better job with that. So then create new class. Session has expired, reloading. I run into some issues like this. I've run into problems a number of times with whiteboard.fi, but I find that when I do, just a refresh usually works pretty well. So we'll just do it again. I had this up ahead of time. So.
And have you found when you refresh that the students have not lost their work?
Yeah, they have not lost their work. I haven't had kind of a major crash on whiteboard.fi yet that involves students losing work or anything like that. And so then I've got this here, and Jim, if you'll go on your side to that, right, being like we're in our group again, and you'll see you, the audience, will see what I'm seeing as the leader in the breakout session. And what I recommend to students, what they do is they oh, that's tough to read. U7FK9. They a lot of students are going to, as they're working on the problem, they don't have stylus-based devices. So I make a big deal about writing on paper and the value that provides cognitively to be writing on paper, where you write down your idea and then you look at it and you have a different relationship to it. You start to draw connections. Mr. Hojat does a fantastic job making this point really explicit to his classes, how the brain works and how writing really helps the brain draw connections. So this whiteboard.fi allows a student who's writing on their paper to really interact fully with the environment. So let's say that I've just here done 3 x squared plus 2x plus 5 equals 0. And I'm using the quadratic formula to solve it. X equals, and negative b plus or minus square root 2a. And I want students to see I've done some work here and I've gotten my work done. And now I want to share it with the other students in my breakout group, right? You can see, and Jim can do the same thing on his side. He could right now be writing onto his board, and what I do here is I click the little icon here that looks like like scenery, like a mountain with a, a sun in the background, and I click it, and it says. Eventually, after the spinning wheel says upload the file. And the students say, well, how do I upload this to get it there? How do I do that? I can't get this here. That's not going to work for me. So what you do is you have the student pull out their phone, and they take their phone and they go to that same location. And it took several run-throughs with students to get them comfortable with this and to require them, say, you need to get a picture of your work on paper up into the space so that we know how to use it and so that we've practiced it enough times. And so, that's where we're still practicing it. But all you have to do on your device, you just type in the same whiteboard.fi, then you type in the code, or you could just, you could just type it right into the URL bar there, whiteboard.fi, and then slash U7FK9, U7FK9, enter. Oh, some gluten-free bread that I was working on here. And I'm going to put, teacher, just going to use the same name and call it teacher photo, and I'm going to join the class. So now I've got kind of the screen up here, which is the teacher screen, which I'm managing on my laptop, which the student would manage, the leader in the class would manage on their laptop. And the leader should be somebody who feels comfortable sharing their Zoom window. You'll hear in a minute, they're going to share their Zoom window with the cohort, with their breakout session. So then I click on my phone. I'm going to do that same workflow of clicking the little scenery icon with the sun in it, the input. And now, make this a little bigger, hopefully. How do I make this bigger? I don't know how to make myself bigger. Pin video. There we go. There's an icon, there's an option to choose the camera. So I hit camera here, and then I can just, do it just once, and I can carefully frame my photo. And I find, as a warning, it really helps to go through this pretty explicitly with students. It's confusing. I mean, I'm confused, and I've spent hours doing it. And, so then I just carefully position the camera. I attend to lighting. Mr. Muncie shared out the awesome story that he wrote with the sad beginning and the happy ending, right? And so I always start by doing it wrong, so that when I put it like this, when I adjust my phone like this, it doesn't show right. So then I have them do it over again. And I say, shake it so that the phone is oriented the right direction, and keep it oriented that same direction. Take a picture when it's in focus. Once you've verified that it's in focus, hit the blue check mark, and that puts it up on your screen, on your whiteboard, and then you can adjust it here to fill the whiteboard. It's kind of involves some squeezing, and students will get this wrong. I have students get it wrong over and over, and I always say, okay, now go back and try. You can resubmit, and they eventually get it right, get it so it fills the window correctly. It is tricky. And once they're comfortable with the image, then they hit save. And now, once everybody's had time in the Zoom session, in the breakout room to do their work, write it out on paper, and they're ready to share. At this point, the leader in the breakout room, the student who's the leader, shares their screen. And the breakout room then can see can see the submissions. I don't know where these two came from. Uh, 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 and over here we've got the mathematics. uh,
So like a normal class, you only have about one student really paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. In the breakout room, you have two people goofing off. And so as a teacher, what I'm usually doing during the breakout sessions is I'm going from room to room, and I'm, always coming in and saying, sorry to interrupt. That's something that I've found that is really important to just do. Like as soon as you come in, even if they're in the middle of a conversation, otherwise you won't get to all the students. And I find that it's much better and much more respectful of students who might be down the line, who are waiting for your help, who are running into technical problems, to just come into the room and interrupt right away as soon as you pop in and say, sorry to interrupt everyone, just wanted to check in, and you'll also see the, panorama stinks. And what the student who's the leader can do now as they're talking is they can kind of be a facilitator, and they can say, let's talk about this one here, and you can pop it up. And you could, if you wanted to, if you decided this was a solution that's really an exemplar, we want to make a couple of comments on it, but we're basically going to go with this as the group's kind of not necessarily solution. Remember that it doesn't even have to be just a problem. It could be a presentation of their work, kind of their output. They can hit actions and copy to teacher whiteboard. And I'm going to do that. And then you'll see up above, now it shows on the teacher whiteboard, and the leader could add additional comments to it here. Or if somebody else says, wait, I want to add one comment, please, can I add one comment? What the leader can do is hit push and push to all the students as a background, the current page. So then all the students in that breakout room have that image, and they can all draw on top of it, add their own images to it, maybe put something else down here in the corner, something like that, put the final calculation, maybe they forgot to do a check and they want to put the check in, whatever it is they want to do. And then, so I'm going to push this to students as background, and you'll see down here now, these don't immediately change, right? Because it hasn't been hit saved. But on each of those, it now shows the math has popped over it, and you could write on top of it. And then the student could save again. The student who wanted to add something to it could save again, and you could again transfer it to the shared space, copy to teacher whiteboard. And then up here, what they can do, remember we're using Nearpod for some of this management, for the whole class management. What they can do is they can click this download button and download it as a PNG or a JPEG. If it's just quick recommendation, if the thing is primarily a photograph taken with a cell phone, then you want to choose JPEG. If it's something written with a stylus, then you want to pick PNG. It'll be perfectly fine, adequate either way, but just pick one of those. So I'm going to pick PNG, and then you get a file that is that image that then you could upload when you come out of the breakout rooms. You can upload to the whole group conversation. That's a mouthful. I explained it twice to my honors students, and they still were confused, and I don't blame them. I'm going back and closing these tabs. Yeah.
Question. Now, you might have to repeat this for the audience, by the way, because I don't know if they can hear on a Loom recording what I'm saying very well. But I was thinking of when I want to have kids do classwork in groups. I haven't tried it yet, but I was thinking of actually having them, put in breakout rooms, do their work on in their notebook, and be prepared to discuss it. But to upload it instead of whiteboard, I was thinking of using a very simple Google form. The reason being, it allows me at the end of the class to quickly track who was participating. It's a way to get a classwork grade in, which I'm finding to be difficult right now. But there are plenty of advantages to whiteboard that you just demonstrated. I'm wondering if is there a way to track everybody's participation on whiteboard and get an alphabetical list of what they did in that class?
There is some, but I actually really like that idea. It's an easy modification to what I was saying, right? When they download the image, when they hit the download button, then they would take that image and boop it up using the form. I like that idea a lot. That I'm probably going to implement that. I was wondering about, I mean, one of the big challenges that I'm having, I expect students, like as a learner, I expect myself to take good notes. And I know that I'm kind of blowing off a class, and I've done this plenty of times, even now, when I don't have enough cognitive space to handle it. When I'm not taking notes, I'm not really learning the material anywhere near as well as if I'm taking notes. And preserving the notes and trying to organize the notes and thinking about my notebook as kind of an organizational space too. So, if the students are creating this on whiteboard.fi and then it goes away, I think that's really a loss. So that's a problem I really haven't solved, and that's a great idea. Yeah. If anybody else has suggestions or has tried out the form method, are students able to? Are you finding? Have you tried it out with students yet using the Google form?
No, I got the idea yesterday because for the second class in a row, at least 5 students were unable to log into Nearpod, and I was going to do activities there. So I'm starting to give up on Nearpod, and I was going to do whiteboard.fi, but I thought I had heard it was crashing too much. So I was brainstorming in bed last night, and I got the idea. Maybe just a simple Google form. You can upload a picture, and I'll have a record of it, and I can sort of, not every day, but maybe once a week. They don't know which day I'm going to take a closer look at it and put it in as a classwork grade.
I've never used Google Forms for uploading an image to my own Google Drive. I'm sure it's possible to do. I've seen people do it before. Have you ever done it? I've never done it. Yeah,
No.
maybe I'll make a quick video, or we can do it together again if we experiment with it and find that works, because that sounds ideal, right? Then you've got your folder on Google Drive of the student work, and somebody else who comes back later, it'll be a place where students have it organized too. You can even give students access potentially, depending on how you decide you want to use, like how you want to work with classwork. You can potentially give students access. So there's kind of a backstop for students who aren't in class. They have at least some like access to content, which is another issue I really haven't solved yet. Students who miss class, what do I do for them? It's not like I can just say, copy your neighbor's notes. They're going to have great notes of everything, because I'm not requiring notebooks in the same kind of way, and we're not in class anyways. So how do they even get in touch with the other students? It's really a challenging problem.
Speaking of notebooks, another idea I had is, maybe once every couple of weeks at the end of a class, again, just as like a spot check, just say, I want everybody in the last 5 minutes of class, I want you to snap a picture of the notes you took today and upload them to Google Form. Here is the link. And again, it's just a way to get a notebook grade in for once every couple of weeks, because we can't really collect them the way we're used to doing it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I should be running this class, Eric.
It definitely, I'd love to. These kind of sessions are so productive and so important, and I'd love to have more sessions like this, where we're kind of talking through all the things that we figured out in this setting.
Yeah, this is incredibly helpful for me. I'm pulling your leg, obviously, being sarcastic about who should be running this. But I'm curious, can you see me? I think you said yes, right? Like, you can see me. So if you ask me a question and I don't unmute myself, but I'm nodding, you can see that, right?
Yeah, definitely. You're up on the board. And so that actually, kind of skipping forward a little bit, but I think it's a good time to do it. So I'm recording using Loom, and that scenario that I was talking about where I want a student who misses class to have something to fall back on, or I want a student who, was just in a brain space or who had chaos going on in their house at the time that class happened, to have something that they can kind of go back to. And so I'm hoping to make some amount of videos of portions of lessons that I consider to be critical. So I'm teaching, algebra 2 honors, 2 periods, and algebra 2, 2 periods. And oftentimes what I'll do is I'll be ahead in algebra 2 honors of algebra 2. And so the fourth time I teach a concept, I have a pretty good feeling for how it's going to go. And what I can do is I can take my Zoom and move it up to the top and turn the sound off on my Zoom so that the Loom recording isn't capturing the sound. And then the students are up on the external monitor and the camera clearly isn't capturing them. And so as far as the recording is concerned, the students just aren't present in the experience, but I still have the ability to see the students up on the monitor doing whatever the students are doing. uh, and really it's just there's just I can even with the way my monitor is working now, I just hit the mute button on my keyboard, and Jim's muted. Actually in Zoom, it's worth showing this. I think probably worth bringing this up really quick. For those who don't know, if you go to participants in Zoom and you go to more down here, there's a
Oh, I'm sorry. We're not seeing the Zoom interface.
oh yeah, you don't see the Zoom interface. Thanks, Jim. If you click participants in I think the recording will see it. I'm pretty sure. So Jim doesn't get to see this, but I think the recording does show it. You click participants and it pulls this window up, and there's the mute all button here. And then Jim gets muted if I do it. I'm not going to do it because then I have to unmute him. Allow participants to unmute themselves. So here we go. I just muted him. Now he can't talk. And if I would have, you can unmute yourself though, right?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And what was I saying? Oh, if I didn't check that, then he wouldn't be able to unmute himself, and so I might want to just leave all the students muted for some period of time while I'm doing kind of more of a direct instruction lesson, just that I'm doing for the purposes of helping out. Like if I notice that a student is absent, a student who I think is likely to, really want to follow the lesson, then I might record. I might be particularly likely to record. The next thing I was going to show is Jamboard. So this is the other scenario. Yeah, Jim.
Just before you move on, just so people know, even if you don't have two monitors, like almost all of us, you can still record with Loom and safely mute all of the students. And if you minimize the Zoom window, correct me if I'm wrong, Eric, but then there won't be any chance of student faces being recorded either, and then you can record the lesson if you want to.
Definitely, and that's actually how I recorded. How I've done some early kind of test recordings, and it definitely does work. You can even get if you do it just right, you can get it so like all of you on the recording are seeing the little circle in the bottom left. Right, you can in Loom, you can start the recording so that you have that. So it's not for a student watching it. It's not just the kind of background. It's also the background with the teacher talking to the screen.
And where are you posting your Loom recordings?
So I'm posting the Loom recordings that I make on my website, my Google Sites place, because it allows me to do the transcripts. I imagine most of you are going to choose, and I think wisely choose, to host your videos either on Google Classroom or on YouTube. And I think there's positives and negatives to either. The big positive to Google Classroom is you can control access, which I think can be pretty important in terms, like, thinking about it, it's a big commitment to make a video. And if you're a perfectionist and you worry too much about the video, you'll never get your videos made. So if you're worried about thousands of people seeing it and laughing at you on YouTube, well, just put it on Google Classroom, and the only people who can see it are your students anyway. And it really works pretty well that way.
There's only 31 people laughing at you.
Yeah, exactly. Though most of them are are just ignoring you instead of bothering even to laugh. Uh, 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 but I think there are benefits to YouTube if you feel comfortable doing it, and I'm kind of I like attention, so I'm probably going to put mine up on YouTube mostly, and use YouTube along with Google Sites. Okay, so the next thing I was going to show is Jamboard for the other scenario in the class. So now we're in another group work scenario, but it's like where you would in the class, instead of giving out 4 worksheets, you'd give out 1 worksheet and all 4 students working on the same worksheet. It's more immediately interactive. It's not like, okay, all of you just work independently. And in this situation, I think Jamboard is a pretty good solution. And so the way I approach Jamboard is I make ahead of time a Jamboard, and just as a warning for making your Jamboards and organizing those, it's kind of like what happened with Nearpod. If you go to jamboard.google.com and look at Google Jamboard, you just see a list of all your recent jams, and it's kind of hard to organize. Yeah, you can make folders over here or new jams. I think there is a way somewhere to make a folder. I can't even remember where, but I don't even bother with that. Whoops. I don't even bother with that. I take my Jamboards when I make them and I put them in the same curriculum folder that I have my presentation slides. And so then they just show there. So, over here in my Google Drive, if I go inside curriculum and I go inside virtual tools and algebra review, you can see all my files in here, all my work from last year. And down here, you can see the Jamboard. And so that's kind of how to make and organize them. And then once you're in here, you can copy files, which is a little annoying to do, right? You can make a copy. And the reason that's nice, I decided that it was going to be effective for students when they first come into the space to have the shared space, quadranted into 4 kind of areas. And so I've set the background of the each of these slides to a PDF that's just kind of the screen partitioned into 4 boxes. So, then in their breakout session, they'd determine who uses which box. And you could still do the same thing with adding an image. So you can, join this breakout. If you hit share up here, you can other students can join this breakout. And in this case, instead of each student making up their own Jamboard, I have one Jamboard for the whole class, and each of the breakout rooms up here, the 1 through 8, each of the breakout rooms knows they go to either room 1 or slide 1 is for breakout room 1, slide 2 for breakout room 2, etc. And so they just go through these frames to the frame corresponding to their breakout room number, and that's where they work. And they can join it on their computer, laptop, but then they can also, just like with whiteboard.fi, join it on their phone and be able to use their phone to upload a picture to one of the quadrants. And the nice thing about this is then when we come back to a whole class, I share the screen and I go, and by the end of the problem, many of the students may have decided they don't need the whatever it's called, the the thing anymore, so they drag that off or delete it. Uh, and they have their solution here, and I can go through each of those. I could say, breakout room 6, do you have anything you want to share about your work that you've got? And on our whole class Zoom, they'll be seeing what breakout room 6 just created, and we can talk about it. And I hope, yeah, Command Z undoes and puts that thing back in the right place. Okay, so that's Jamboard. A tool that in a lot of ways I don't love, but in this particular scenario, I think is a pretty good fit. And the final, oh yeah, I had Google Drive open again right here so you could see. Here's the Jamboard shared, saved, and students. If a student misses, if a student wants to go back and look at it, they can go back and open up that particular Jamboard and see all the work from weeks or months ago if they wanted to. The fourth scenario is, I think, another really common scenario in my classes where I'm posing a really open-ended, really ambiguous kind of question. Maybe we're trying to write a definition of a concept. And I want students to participate in a whole class kind of setting of throwing stuff out there. And either me or a student is acting as the facilitator, simply capturing on the board whatever the students are saying. And so what I'm using for that is either, OpenBoard is what I would be using if I didn't have a stylus-based device to work on. Since I do have a stylus-based device, what I'm using is an application called, on my iPad, I have an application called GoodNotes. Well, I actually haven't decided. It's either one of either GoodNotes or Nebo. There's benefits to both, and I haven't really decided which yet. I think I'll show you Nebo now. But probably with students, I'd be using GoodNotes. Anyways, if anybody gets an iPad or has an iPad and wants to kind of collaborate with me, I haven't been able to work with anybody on how to use this iPad yet, so I'm really curious what people have figured out. Okay. So what I do, I'm going to stop sharing, and the experience for an iPad is I hit the share screen button, and I have an option here that says iPhone or iPad via cable, and you could do this with an iPhone too. So if you have an iPhone, you can, under your sharing settings, you can share, and then you're able to. Students will see what your come on. I think I hit the wrong thing. Share screen. Oh yeah, I never clicked it. iPhone, iPad. There we go. Nope. It says I chose the wrong one again. Let me pull this down so the video can see. Sorry, Jim, you won't be able to see this.
It looks like Nebo's available on the Android store too, by the way.
Oh, cool. So if you have an Android-based stylus as well, you can use it. I've actually used it on Chromebooks, and I like it a lot on the Chromebooks. So then I pick the option share screen, and I read these carefully, and I choose not via cable but via AirPlay, iPhone, iPad via AirPlay. And this is a little complicated, but if you have an iPhone or an iPad, what happens is then down in the top right, you go and there's an option for screen mirroring. And once you've done it, if assuming your iPhone or iPad and your laptop are on the same Wi-Fi, there'll be an option on there to choose your Zoom session, and you click it, and eventually you can see right my iPad screen right here. And when I make that stuff go away, you can see my iPad screen. And so then I would go into I'm going to go into GoodNotes, and this is some homework for class. Let me do a new one. New notebook.
This is GoodNotes, not Nebo?
This is GoodNotes that I'm looking at right now. I don't know why I picked this one. They're really pretty similar, honestly. Uh, and then I can, like if we were doing, I don't even remember what that problem was, 3x squared. Oh, uh, 3x squared plus 2x plus 5 equals 0. And remember, I can still see the students up on my monitor as I'm working here, and I can see on this the board essentially, and the students can see the board as well as I'm writing. And uh, one of the things that GoodNotes does, it has really good handwriting, and I think it looks really nice. But it doesn't allow me to kind of like copy and paste and turn this into math instantly. Whereas in Nebo, I can. I recently just did here this, and I just circled that, and it says copy as, and I can hit the copy as, and I copy as math, and now I've got that integral copied into the memory of the device, and it's no longer an image. Even though I hand wrote that, it turned it into math. And if I went to another application, like for instance Wolfram Alpha, and I pasted it in, I tested this out beforehand, so it's already there, but I pasted in, and you can see now, if I wait a minute, so you can see as this loads in Zoom, it takes a minute. I already did this on my device, but I'm waiting for Zoom to catch up. There it is, and then I can hit go, and underneath, after Wolfram Alpha does some work, it solves that integral and shows all of the steps for solving the integral. There's the step-by-step solution, and it shows how to do all the steps. I can click show all steps on the next thing that comes up, right? I click the step-by-step solution, and then I click the option for show all steps, the white button at the bottom, and I can see all the steps for solving that particular integral. And I can show that off to students if I want. Or if I instead wanted to show off maybe the graph, right? It makes a nice graph right away that I can see. And there's a bunch of tools. This is actually the next thing that I was showing you, some of the other tools that there are. Desmos is a really great tool that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. I'm going to switch away. Sorry for that. That is disorienting. I'm going to switch away from sharing on my iPad now. And one of the nice things with that, just while I'm talking about that math, the copying and pasting, I could also have copied that into Microsoft Word if I wanted to use it as for a test. If I wanted to put it in as a test, or into Google Slides, if I wanted to have like a really kind of professionally rendered version of that integral as a problem that I wanted to pose to students, I can paste that into a slide. Okay, what am I doing now? I was talking about Desmos. So Desmos, you can use the graphing calculator in here. I think it's pretty convenient over when you're sharing your screen to be able to use Desmos. But I also am encouraging students to do it, and I'm showing them some of the features that they might not know about in Desmos, some of the ability to download images. So when you're in Desmos, if you want to download an image and submit it like Mr. Muncie was talking about with the slot, with a form, a Google form, you could do a bunch of work in here. Maybe you're like doing a graphical solution to a system, and you have y equals 3x plus 5, and you have y equals x. And
you gotta share your screen, I think.
Yes, I do. Thank you. So I am. I've gone into Desmos. I've opened the calculator, and I've just entered into equations, and I've got this line, and then I can look here, and I can find the intersection point. Uh, and the intersection point would be the solution to the system. There it is. And it shows it right there when I hover over it. It shows it as negative 2.5, negative 2.5. And so if I wanted to save this, if I wanted to print this out as an answer for a problem, I might put in negative 2.5, comma, negative 2.5 and even label it on there. So then, and now what I can do is I can download this image. There's share graph, and there's also, where's the download in here? Maybe it is share graph. Yeah, export image, right? It could just export it, or depending, maybe you have the form, so all students have to do is share the link. But either way, you can have students submit work that they've done through Desmos in that way. The final kind of math app that I want to show off is GeoGebra. I like GeoGebra a lot. It is significantly more powerful than the other apps. It's kind of like Mathematica, which is another Wolfram product that's really intended for people who are doing pretty hardcore math and who've learned a lot already. But they've got some great classroom resources in this website. The basic calculator has a lot of power, and might at first it kind of has the same layout as Desmos, and it just runs right in your browser. There is a version that you can download and run native, so even if you don't have Wi-Fi, you can use it. But I mostly just use the online version that's just like Desmos. It just runs over the internet. But there's also this 3D calculator that's pretty cool, and you can do things like make a cone and have a sphere inside the cone, and it's got good tools for being able to construct those shapes and show them, and then rotate the screen so that students who are looking via Zoom can see that shape and interact with that shape a little bit. So you've got this space here. Why is... There we go. And I can move that around. It's really laggy right now. I'm not sure why. But I'm not going to spend a lot of time demonstrating this. It could be we could spend a whole hour on GeoGebra at some point. I used it. I took a class on Euclid's Elements where I had to do all of the proofs in Euclid's Elements, the first, 6 books, a bunch of the proofs from Euclid's Elements. And it was really challenging and fun, but we'd write them in LaTeX, which is the kind of, I'm going to show you in just a minute, we'd write them in LaTeX and then have images, and the images we'd all generate in GeoGebra. It does a really good job of making 3D and 2D images that you can then export and share in a test or in a slide, or however you want to share it with students if you're making a problem or a problem scenario that you want to pose.
I think it's also good for pretty complex constructions.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. That's fun. And then I was saying that I was going to talk about LaTeX. LaTeX is a it's a general formatting language. But I think one of the best ways to interact with it is the equation, but without the end, equate IO, input output for equations. Kind of a complicated name, but EQUATIO. I think it's also clever and memorable. You can get it as a Chrome extension, and you can see that I've got it installed as a Chrome extension. And this works perfect if what you're dealing with is Google Docs and Google Slides. But if you're using Microsoft Word, or you just want to use any app that's running on your computer, any application running on your computer, you can actually install Equate.io locally. And once you do, when you open it up, there'll be a bar at the bottom of your screen like this. And it's got some nice features, including the mobile version, where you click this and you, on your phone or your tablet, you go to a particular website, and then you can draw, if you have like a complicated function that you're trying to put in and you're like, you used to use math type and it always took forever to do the get the exponents and the fraction bar in the right place. Well, you could just click this Equate.io mobile and it goes to your phone, and then you have a screen on your phone and you just draw it on your phone, whatever you want to do with your finger, and it uses character recognition and turns it into a LaTeX expression, and then gives you kind of the professionally formatted version that you just pop right into your Microsoft Word test or whatever else you want to put it in. So this is kind of LaTeX, that same integral that I did before, integral from 2 to 3 of x dx. You could see that I actually took this from my phone via that portal, got it over here, put it in here, and here's what you could then put right into Microsoft Word. Actually, I'll show off Microsoft Word. Right there it is there. And, once you're in the flow, if you're making a test, it literally takes less than a second more time than it takes to write it by hand to get it right onto your test. It's pretty much just as fast as writing it by hand. And so Equate.io for making problems, I highly recommend. And it's pretty awesome that they give us the kind of full version for free if we're teachers. So I include a link in the email for how to request that.
Have I been pronouncing that wrong all these years? You're telling me that's pronounced LaTeX.
It's pronounced both ways correctly. Latex and LaTeX are both common. It's kind of like GIF versus GIF, like graphical. A lot of people think the G in graphical is the sound that you should use at the beginning of GIF, but plenty of people say GIF, and both are correct. LaTeX is kind of a simplified version of a formatting language called TeX, T-E-X, and that's correctly pronounced tech. So, putting the la in front of tech, but I think latex is more natural. I don't know, whatever. I use LaTeX because I kind of have some familiarity with both. I'm going to close Equate.io to get it out of the way. One of the things that's annoying about it is when this is open, it's in the way of your downloads from Google Chrome. I'm sure there's a way to configure that, but I have not figured it out yet. I haven't even tried. Okay, we're really almost to the end. Thanks for being patient. I know this is overwhelming. You can, if you want to do Wolfram Alpha on your computer, you can also paste it in that way. I guess I don't have it anymore in my clipboard, but through Equate.io, you can copy it and you can paste it in here. So that's another way to get things into Wolfram Alpha, or paste it into Desmos or some other tools. Anything that can kind of deal with LaTeX. Okay, and then we have Panorama. Don't have anything to say about this other than go to secure.panoramaed.com to get here. I spent most of an hour figuring that out and finally asked, and Nikon told me go to Clever, and that's how I finally found it. Not looking forward to learning a completely new interface when we had something that was, as far as I'm concerned, working and really reliable. And I just learned from Mr. Muncie that, I don't know, do you want to share what you learned about the...
Sure. I'll probably send an email as soon as we're done here,
okay,
so people can read it. But in case I forget, I reached out to Panorama because I couldn't figure out how to send a blast journal entry for multiple students. So if I email all my parents and tell them X, and I want to make a note that I've done so, in Aspen, you can do a blast journal entry for all your students' parents, or for all your students. But in Panorama, I couldn't figure it out. I wrote to them, I asked them, and they confirmed that is not a possible feature, that they like the idea, they're going to work on it. So for now, if you want to put an entry into all of your students, the same entry into all of your students' Panorama journals, you have to copy and paste it 124 times. So have fun with that, everybody.
Yeah, so, Okay, next. This is just how I'm making the recording and how I'm going to share it with you. So I'm using Loom. I talked about it a little bit before, but this is what it looks like. When you're recording automatically, uploads to the server so that your videos end up on the server automatically, which has some real benefits and also some negatives. It's nice because you can go into it and you can clip out portions. So if you had a student who, you know, unmuted themselves or Zoom bombed you or whatever else, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get rid of that, but I made this whole video that I want to share, and I don't want to re-record the whole video. Well, you just go into Loom, and there's just a little simple interface for grabbing a part of the video and deleting it. I guess I don't know how long it's going to take to open this video, but when it opens, I can just quickly show how you would do that. While it's loading, there's another service called Otter.ai that the district recommends, and that works really well at taking your video or the audio channel of your video, either one, and generating a transcript automatically from it that you could upload to YouTube, or that you can embed in the video, so that now you have a subtitled video, a video where the subtitles work. And I know YouTube automatically generates subtitles, and so does Google Classroom, but I think the subtitles are a little better here. And the benefit is to Otter, is you can actually grab the entire transcript as one file and share that in companion with the subtitles of the video. Okay, so here's Loom, what it looks like. If I click the edit button, the trim button here, I could go in and I can pick a part of the video that I wanted to trim.
Hello.
Oh, that's me talking. Kind of confusing myself. Start trimming. It makes this here, and you can kind of pull this red part, and the part that is in that red part is the part that is going to get trimmed, right? Those 55 seconds, if I hit remove over here, it'll remove those 55 seconds. And you can hit play, and while you're in this mode, it'll only play those 55 seconds, so you can check to make sure you've got the whole thing that you want to remove, and then you just hit remove. And once you've done that, it's actually easy to upload to YouTube directly from Loom. Okay, that's everything. That was a mouthful. Took 3 times as long as I imagined. Jim, you have anything you want to add?
Other than a huge thank you to you for sharing all your knowledge. This is unbelievable, the amount of time you've clearly already put into this, and then willingness to share it with everybody, knowing you'll be flooded with questions. But yeah, you're just incredibly generous with your time and expertise, so thank you. But no questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim, for being a student or whatever, being on the call. I think it makes a lot more interesting for everybody. See you all. Have a great day.